We'll go ahead and start. Um, Hello, my pride and joy. Pride for Pride of Lions, and joy because I enjoy this so much. I enjoy our speakers, and I enjoy our great, amazing audience. Today, I would like to introduce Luke Greenheart. He is a podcaster. He has written a book, and you can find his information at lukegreenheart.com/free for the book, or just go to lukegreenheart.com to see what he's up to today. So tell us a little bit about where you're at, because people are going to be curious why you're outside.
Thank you so much for having me and for your guest for being here and listening to me and you and our conversation. Truly appreciate it. I am outside because I'm in the south of Spain and I'm in the woods, and I live full time in a van traveling, which was due to financial reasons in the beginning. It's why I ended up in it. I weren't choosing to travel and see the wild. My love, Danielle, she got really sick. We sold our home and we had to travel to alternative care across the country, and along the way had to lose all our finances but she's in good health now, so it was worth it.
Good. Wow, that's really positive attitude. A lot of people could look at it as like, oh, woe is me because of all the terrible things happen, but I love it that you look at it as something amazing and wonderful, and I'm so glad to hear she's doing well.
Yeah, well, they told me that she would be dead by now. I was told 99% chance. She had a cardiac arrest, so her heart stopped, and she was only 29 at the time. And she was brought back on the defibrillator pads, the electric pads.
Mm-hmm.
And when she came back, she had mild brain damage. She couldn't walk, and she was on morphine and medicated. I had to lose my career and job to look after her. I was already caring for my mum as well at the time, so there was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. And yeah, an unseen future of suffering and pain to go into. So it wasn't nice at the time, but something in me switched during that time, and I along that built an attitude that life has had a lot of chaos in it, but I'm going to find a way to feel some joy and to feel some love despite whatever's going on, to find that balance within. And I did.
Awesome. That's great. That's very encouraging. Great way to look at life. So tell us a little bit about your book, what it's called, and we can find it on Amazon, correct?
Yeah, so the book's as of only 3 days ago. So it's my first book, so I'm really excited about it. It's called The Self, Who Am I? And this book actually started while I was writing a totally different book called The Power of Self. And that was who am I, why am I, and what am I? And that was like a bigger concept. And then as I was writing that, I thought I want to give away a free book that will give the first chapter to the book. And then that first chapter turned into its own book all in itself called The Self, because I realized, like, if you give power to something, but it doesn't have a clear direction, that power will go in every direction. Yeah. So it's not, if you have a real strong purpose or a sense of purpose in a direction, then you can empower that and move forward with focus. So this book was all about clarifying your identity of self as not the label of job or father or mother, but a real core identity of self, and then a core purpose. And they can read the book, but in the book I break it down to there's 3 pillars of purpose, and everyone, I believe, belongs to one of them as the foundation. And I go through that in the process. It's got questions, and I ask people to literally write down their answers to try and help them figure out what in their innate core drives them to one or the other. Because I believe if anyone put enough focus and awareness into it, that they would feel that they do have a direction in one of them 3 pillars, and then they can build upon that. It's like a foundation.
That's excellent. Excellent. I was just looking in my library here because I've got your book and I really enjoy it. And I think the chapter that seemed to stand out to me at this time in my life right now was Unconditioned Attitude.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about what does that mean, unconditioned attitude?
That chapter was originally called Unconditional Love. And then it came to me, I was like, well, it's part of it is unconditional love. And I see love is similar to an attitude in that someone can say, I practice in self-care. And I break down in the book how self-care and self-love have similarities, but are 2 different things. You can care for something without love. You can provide it shelter and nurture. Many parents do, many animal keepers do, but they don't have an attitude of love, and they're not giving that love to that what they're caring for, but they are providing it food and shelter, and that's a form of care. Whereas some are providing that form of care, but with an abundance of this loving attitude towards it as well. So it's all about building that attitude of that. And the unconditional side is to not actually set expectations on how something should be. So I think I reference in the book, for most people, it's easier to think of a newborn. So if you had like a newborn, even a pet, then it's really young, right at the beginning, or a baby when it's right in them beginning stages. We don't already have an ambition or a goal of how it should behave that day. You just want it to prosper and flourish, and you want it, the life, to continue to live. It's all you want. You don't want it to have pain or anything else. But you don't have set tasks that it should really behave this way. It should do this. We won't love it. You won't care for it, and you won't do them things. You don't have conditions on it because you don't expect from it. It's all about breaking down your expectations. So you don't expect for something, and then that breaks away your conditions. And if you don't expect and you don't have conditions, then you can't have judgments, because you judge whether the condition was met to meet the expectations. So they're all sort of synergized together.
That's very insightful. Yeah. This is one, I'm going to read one paragraph. It says, bringing your attitude back to its center point of calmness, stillness is where you can have optimum internal focus to discover your purpose. This is why contemplation and clarity on your purpose is of necessity. I love that. I love the way that says that. I mean, it really takes the pressure off of us. Oh no, I haven't found my purpose. What am I supposed to do in life? And it's like, just stop for a minute and be calm and think about what's happening around you. Just kind of look at everything.
Yeah, and I think some people, they worry that being still is unproductive,
Yes.
which shows they have a core passion of being productive, which is great. But much like if you have, like I said with Danielle and her health, I've had moments where I've had paramedics that are there in an emergency situation, and if they wasn't calm and collective, she wouldn't be here right now. It's because of that calming attitude that they either innately had or trained to have, whichever way. If they were stressed out, worried, that they wouldn't have actually done a productive job. So bringing yourself to a certain state of calmness is actually more productive in some situations.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about, you were taking care of your mother too. So maybe kind of expand on that a little.
Okay, well, my mother is the biggest gift in my life. She passed just a few months ago, and I've been her full-time carer pretty much my entire life. From the ages of 5, she started developing severe schizophrenia. So when I was very young, she separated from my father due to her illness, and he didn't know what to do. He'd become a weekend parent, and myself and my brother got full custody with my mother, who was in no state or ability to look after 2 children. But in England, and at the time, as a male, he couldn't get the custody. It just wasn't happening no matter what he did. And I know he was trying. And we spoke later on, and he said he tried, but he also didn't understand how bad it was getting with her illness, because we would hide it from him. At the weekends, we would see him, we might go camping, and the last thing we wanted to do is bring up the events of the week, and especially to him, because we didn't want to hurt him. So my early childhood was very strange during the week, many times without food, bizarre situations happening, and caring for my mum instead of her caring for me. And same with my brother. But because we were so young, we never learned the skills that you actually need. So the house became filthy, the place was an absolute mess, and like never learned them tools until I was older. How do you do the basic housekeeping and things like that? But that also caused me at like, I think the earliest I can remember, somewhere around 7 years old, I contemplated taking my own life, because I was finding life too painful. I was really like, I can't live like this. Something's bizarre. I was comparing my life to other kids I saw in school. I didn't want to go to school. Home life was so odd that it was just a painful scenario to be in, and I couldn't understand it. But then that made me question it. And then as I questioned it, it made me sort of be on a direction of like, what is the point of life? Because I'm questioning taking mine. Is there a point to this? Is there a purpose? I went through time of praying, because my nan was Catholic, and when she was there, she'd make the grandchildren try and get involved in some form of religion. So I prayed and cried my little wires out, and felt at the time I got no answers. So then I ended up questioning all religions to see what all these other people doing. But it just sent me on a path of a lot of questioning and a discovery, that I actually reflect back on now as beautiful. It was ridiculously painful to go through. I had about 20 years of severe depression. And my last suicidal issue was in 2015. So it wasn't that long ago. This was something that went ongoing through my whole life, but it was always because of external pain. The external situations were too hard. But it wasn't that breaking point in 2015. And this is when Danielle was ill. That year, my mum was extremely ill. As I started caring for Danielle, my mum was doing multiple suicide attempts every month. I think to try and take herself out of the situation, because I'm running back and forth between her and Danielle. But in that point, that's when I just couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I'm done. But in that last moment, I had something in me that said, you're going to find the way. You're going to find a way to find love within. You're going to find a way to find enjoyment and joy for life and love life. And that wasn't instant. In no way was it instant. But I had a new focus, a new direction, and it wasn't about the external, because I knew that these problems weren't going to go away tomorrow, and they weren't going to go away certainly within a year or two. So I had to find a way.
Yeah, and I don't want to say this to make little or light of what you were saying, but it does come down to perspective of where we're at. You change your perspective of the situation, and I think it's more than that. Is you look for the hope in the situation. I think when we feel like there is no hope, that means there's no way out. That means there's nothing else available. And so we get into the stage of, then why am I still here if there's nothing else, if this is it? And gosh, to find that at such a young age, and then again when you're older, and to listen to it. I think sometimes we listen too much to those external negatives that we've had all throughout our life, and we have to stop them. That's comfortable for our brain to think that way. It's like, well, this always happens, so of course this is going to happen now, but it doesn't have to. And you have to tell your brain, it's like, it's not going to happen that way. I know there's something better. I'm so proud of you for listening to yourself, listening to the hope that's out there, and taking that step to go forward.
Yeah, and like you said, with the hope, sorry to cut you there, but the hope part, when I first started, like when I had the most transformation and I felt sustainability, it was once I got to some sustainability, because for a few years I would have these really like high, beautiful experiences where I felt like life is good, it's worth living, and then the next moment, the next day, I'd be like, oh, I've got to get myself back to that place. And it was like training. It was like, do these practices, do this breathing, do this meditation, do all these things to keep bringing myself back to this place. There was an inconsistency. It wasn't until I found consistency that then I was like, I want to start actually sharing now. I want to see if I can touch anyone and bring a little bit of balance or harmony to their life. And it was to bring, as you said, it was to bring a possibility of hope, of change. That's all I wanted to share and say, like, this is what happened to me. Maybe something beautiful could happen to you. Maybe you can change your perspective in some way. And sometimes it just takes a subtle influence. Like I had you on my podcast the other day and you corrected me afterwards, and I got the message. So I was so happy I did, because I was like, I knew I said it slightly wrong, but the saying your father said, saying he never met a stranger, only friends he didn't know. And that's already there's one sentence out of our whole show, but that stuck with me, because it's a beautiful saying, and that came from your grandfather. So something he said, and I imagine he's passed, but he's still actually affecting a life. He affected a life in Spain he probably never thought he would. From just a sentence, not from a book. So sometimes it's just the littlest thing. So as I was creating, I was like, maybe just a phrase or one word from 100 videos might touch one person. And that was my only incentive at the beginning.
Yeah. I was talking with some people on Sunday, and the gentleman that I was talking with, and if I could remember his whole name, I would say it now. But he was saying that, you don't have to go out and impact everybody's life or 1,000 people's life. Just impact one person's life. And maybe that one person impacts one other person. And then maybe that one other person impacts 1,000 other people. Or maybe, this is your time to step up and impact 1,000 people. But don't look at it as you have to do this humongous thing. You only have to do one thing, and then do one thing more. And his last name is Milet, and I think it's One More is his book, but that's for another show. This show's about you, but it's that same thing.
Yeah, or you can do nothing and you know nothing will happen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only guarantee. You do nothing, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, who would have ever thought, my grandfather saying that, and my mother relaying it to me, and then me relaying it to you or to someone else, that one statement can be so impactful. I come back to that movie, Pay It Forward, how the one little boy just wanted to make an impact into 3 people's lives. And he just said, all you need to do is now you touch 3 other people's lives. And in the show, it created this whole movement. Well, it did create a movement in reality too, is, you do pay it forward. And like I was talking on your show, sometimes I'm just standing in the grocery line and I talk to somebody and it makes their day better. Or sitting in an office, at the doctor's or wherever, and just saying hi to the neighbor. It's amazing how one smile, one word of kindness, holding a door open for somebody, can just make the whole difference in that person's day.
Yeah, I always think of it as well. Like I've been in positions in my younger, not now, where I've been so angry that I would walk the streets. I was from like a city upbringing near an airport, so it was very busy. There was a lot of crime and a lot of issues in the town. It was a big place. But I remember walking the streets hoping someone gives me a bad look because I was looking to let out some anger. So I was like, if someone looks at me the wrong way, that then gives me some justification to react a certain way. Yeah, luckily most people, I was quite a big guy and quite tough, so most people just didn't. Then they could see that I weren't looking too happy, so most people would look away from me. But I'd be walking the streets trying to keep myself calm, but full of this rage and anger. And I always remember, like, I was lucky that no one ever did say anything to me. No one ever did look at me the wrong way in them situations. And I'm really grateful for that because I would have made a mistake or a reaction that wouldn't have been of a benefit to them or to me. But it makes me reflect now and go, you don't know whether you're going to say something that could do that to someone else. But in the same reverse is happening. You don't know if someone had stopped me and smiled at me or said something beautiful to me, I wouldn't have reacted terrible to them. It would have shocked me out my system. It would have completely changed my mind and what I was in at that moment. So I know also the difference it can make if someone just gives that little bit of attention, that little touch, that little bit of, like you said, just it's unconditional. You're not setting a condition like, I'm going to smile at you, but you must smile back. You must do this, but there's nothing. You're like, this is mine, I'm giving it to you. That's a smile.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody asked me one time when I was younger, it's like, how come you smile all the time? Because why would I want to be anything else?
Yeah.
Why?
It's easy for children, isn't it? They can give such an honest answer. Like you could ask that to a child and they will just tell you.
Yeah.
When you get old, you ask someone, you might stop them smiling pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. So that brings up a good question for me is you're going through all of this as a child. So maybe, I don't quite know how to word it, I guess. I want to give some encouragement to somebody who's maybe going through something similar. So as you look back at your younger self, what can you say that maybe would have given hope or help in a situation like that?
I think for me, I always felt that there was some form of like, I wasn't a bad person. I don't like using the word good or bad, to be honest. It's like you're either constructive or deconstructive. You're either helping build yourself and build your community, or you're breaking yourself down and breaking your community down. So I would say like there's something constructive within you to my younger self or to anyone that's in that stage. And to really try and notice that and feel that you have some value and worth, and that as long as you find that inside, that you can continue to be constructive for yourself, and therefore you'll be constructive to others around you, that you're good enough right now. You don't need fixing. Do you know what I mean? You can build upon that, you can develop upon that foundation, you can grow to something beautiful, but you're not broken, you're not damaged. And I think that would be the encouragement I would give my younger self.
So I want to ask you about your brother, and if
Mhm.
you know this is not something to talk about here, that's fine. You just say so.
Everything's to talk about.
Um, so what about your brother? How did he go through all of this? I mean, you had the two of you together. Was there some kind of bond that you guys stayed strong together? But then
Yes.
where is he now? You know,
So he's about 3.5 years older than me. He was my big brother,
your
he
big
looked out
brother,
for me, so he was the tough one. He had his own issues that he tried to hide. And I could always tell something was up, he's in some form of pain. His way of dealing with that was to become extra tough. So although I was quite a tough kid because I looked up to him, he was known as the toughest kid in school. He had a reputation in the town, so no one would ever mess with him, sort of thing. And I got the benefit of that byproduct.
right?
We had people in the town would come up to me, they go, "Don't touch him, he's such and such brother." And I'd be
Oh
like,
yeah,
"Oh wow." I was like, "What's that mean?" You know?
that was a benefit,
Yeah. And I was like, okay. But then that made me think, okay, tough's important. You've got to be tough as well, And then part of
right?
that toughness can bring you in a state of anger if you've not got the mechanisms to handle it. But luckily, my brother's always been a positive influence. He's always been the encouragement. He's always told me like to build upon yourself and to not be violent and to make yourself of great strength so you're useful, not destructive. So he's always been a really strong positive influence my entire life. When we was teenagers, there was lots of little fighting and bickering in between, like when we was very young, just trying to find our place as, I think, brothers, and both being in a very strange situation. But during it, even in the worst of times, he would comfort me, or we'd end up like we'd lock each other in his room and would barricade the door because my mum might be behaving in a way we couldn't be predictable and we were scared for our life. So we would literally put our furniture up against the door and we'd sit in there and we'd play a game of chess or draw some pictures. And that was just normal life for us. So it was just like, okay, but we had each other. And then as we got older, it was me and him taking her to the hospital, visiting. She spent 20, 30 different psychiatric wards she could be in for like a year or two at a time, all different things. And we would go and visit her every day as often as we could, and we'd go together all the time. And it wasn't until Danielle got ill, and the hardest part about Danielle getting ill was me having to travel to leave my brother for the first time. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, because I didn't know when I'm coming back. And it's been 5 years since then, and I've only seen him once
Wow,
because I've not been able to afford to get back. And then because the coronavirus happened, I've not been able to travel even if I could afford so easily. Anyway, it sort of put a halt to everything. But we still have phone calls and we still keep in contact that way. And I just have the feeling that one day this moment will be a little speck in our life experience that we'll look back on and that we use and develop from.
right, right. So, so what does your brother do for a living? I imagine he's got a full-time job and stuff, or
No, well, no, we could neither of us could hold down a full-time job with my mum's health. Both of us tried to go get jobs, and she would literally find us in the town. She would come in and cause chaos, and we'd end up having like to be told like, "I don't think you can work here," or something would happen. So it was always hard to maintain that. And every time we would leave her alone too long, something would happen. Either she invites someone inappropriate home, lots of people try and take advantage of her. And that's just like people, not just sometimes sexually, but sometimes it was people just wanting the house to come and crash in, or to use her to get her to buy drink or alcohol from her money that she gets. Like she was given government money for being disabled. People would wait for her at the cash machine to try and take her money, knowing they could just ask her for it. And she was so generous, she would give it. This was the biggest issue. She was such a kind soul that she always thought everyone needs more help than she does. So she would be giving stuff away and doing things, and yeah, so we had to deal with that, and it made it really hard for us to ever have a normal 9 to 5 or a job in that style. But me and my brother started a career for ourselves. We sold everything we could have at one point, and we bought some cameras, and we said we're going to go and try and we're going to get into the film industry or make something. And we started doing music videos for friends, and then that built into getting paid videos. We started doing adverts and marketing videos for small businesses in the town, and small documentaries for athletes and things that we knew, and we was doing really well. And we're just starting to build a career where we could be freelance, work in our own time, and be our own boss. And this is when Danielle got ill. So when I lost my work, was him also losing his. So at the same time, what affected me and me having to lose everything, he lost everything. And then he got ill as well at that same point. In that same year, he was getting really sick and ill, which he's doing a lot better now.
good,
So he was in a
good.
place, and he was resistant with his own core of independence. He never wanted to be on anyone else's allowance. So he just sort of lived it rough for a little bit. You know, he was just like, I can take it, I'm tough. So for him, it's just building that foundation up again. And he's just now, his passion is writing. He wants to make films. So he's writing scripts. He's actually got script being looked at by a high-end producer for Netflix at the moment, which
Nice.
literally happened the last couple of weeks just through networking, which they really love. So yes, I hope it's there as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, when
Yeah.
it comes out, you'll have to let us know. That would be great. Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, very
That's
exciting. So he'll be going from zero to something because he's
yeah.
on ground zero right now.
Yeah. Wow, that's just, I never know what people are going to talk about when they come on my show, but this is great because it shows going through adversity, and all of us can learn from you on how to handle things like this. I mean,
Yeah, the
now,
biggest thing that I say I've learned and I'm trying to share with people, and I don't like to say even help people, is just to gift people, to aid them, that they can choose to take it
right,
or not. You know, it's a bit of, I don't know if I put it in the book. I think I put it on a video actually that I made the other day for my YouTube channel. And I said, I don't like the idea of anyone ever looking up to me, because then they might be looking down on themselves. Just as I
oh
don't like
yeah,
looking up to anyone, because then there's always the up and down. I think a center point, if we can look at each other direct, that's the optimum exchange. So I don't look at anyone as better or worse than me. It's just like, if we can have an open, honest communication, they'll gift me just as much as I'll gift them. You know,
yeah,
you
we
just
don't,
share openly.
sorry. I was going to say we don't want that comparison. Um, this is what this person is doing, and oh, I could never do that. And it's like, well, maybe you're not supposed to do that, but maybe glean something from what this person is doing on how they're doing it, why they're successful at it, and then apply that to your own life. And never think you're better than anybody else or you're worse than anybody else, because we're all just different or unique. We've gone through our own life experiences, which make us uniquely able to handle whatever situation we're in. I mean, the books you've written, if you hadn't gone through what you went through, you wouldn't have ever been able to write those kind of books. And they're encouraging, easy to read. It's not complicated, not written. So it's for me, I have a difficult time reading books, so I need something that flows. And if the book is flowing, then I can keep reading it. And you have so many wonderful things in your book to talk about. I mean, each chapter is just so unique in itself. And I don't want to
Thank you so
say
much for
easy.
the review.
Yeah, I don't want to say easy read, but
My
it's
my goal,
an
I wanted it to be
enjoyable read.
I wanted it to be as simple as possible. The complex doesn't always mean, like you said, good or bad. It doesn't mean something's better. You
Yeah,
know, it's not complex to eat food in a basic way, yet the process is complicated in what's going on.
yeah,
But you do just put it in your mouth and chew and swallow. But you can either simplify that or really complicate it. So I tried with the book, with the approach. I wanted it to be in its simplest forms, because there's enough complicated stuff out there. If you want to be complicated, there's plenty of that.
yes, there is. Yes, there is. Oh, I don't think we gave the title of your book. What is your book called again? Maybe we
This one's
did.
called the Self.
The
Who
Self.
am I? As in, who are you, the reader? Who are you at the core? Like, what? How do you identify yourself? And my goal and intention with the book was to try and put clarity in your actual identity of self, what the self is, sharing my perspective on that, as well as a direction to their purpose. Like I said, I think everyone has a core purpose of service, to
Yeah,
be here for a very direct reason and usefulness. And I think a lot of pain and suffering comes from that feeling of being useless and not enough. So
yeah,
mine is to encourage people to find that clarity and identity, find a purpose, so then they can build from their experience an actual ability to serve.
right. Right. That's wonderful. I love that. You know
It's
what? Go
been a
ahead.
beautiful experience for myself. And like I said, my main thing is to also, there is a way of finding um, some good feelings within, despite an external chaos. And that's a big part of why I put stuff online at the beginning of the last 2 years when everything went crazy. I've seen a lot of people suffering the craziness of the external world, whereas I found it reassuring. I was like, okay, something unexpected happened. This hasn't shaken me up.
Yeah.
This hasn't caused me loads of pain. It's a pain in a you can say a pain in a certain type of body part. I won't say it on your podcast. It's a pain in some way, but only
inconvenient.
it's an inconvenience. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how quickly can I turn it to an opportunity?
Yes. Great way to think of it. That's it. I use the example of a big boulder in the middle of the road, and it's like you can either look at it and say, okay, I'm stuck, can't go any further, I'm going to be like this the rest of my life, this is all there is. Or you can just walk around it. You can find a way to climb over it. If you've got dynamite in your pocket, you stick it under there, blow it up so it's completely out of the road, but you look for alternatives. You don't look at it as wow, this is a big roadblock I can't get through. Maybe it's time to just stop and contemplate, like you were talking earlier. Just contemplate on where you're at and how far you've come. I think one thing that we don't do is look at the little wins we have throughout the week, all the good things that have happened. We work hard because we're going after this one certain goal, but we stop to look at, wow, look at all the steps I took to get to that goal, and reward ourselves for that by being happy about it. This one group I'm in, every Wednesday we talk about the wins we had the week before, and you start out, it's like, well, I didn't have any wins, did I? And oh, well, yeah, I guess I did this one thing. And well, okay, that means, yeah, I did another thing. And I think if we take time to congratulate ourselves, I mean, it's not like being selfish and puffing ourselves up to be better or whatever. We're just looking at what we actually have accomplished. And that's good for our brains. I mean, that puts happy things in our brains. So we have that to call on. So our brain goes, yeah, when you did this really great thing happened. So we're not so afraid to try something else again, because great things happen when we take those little steps.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think self-encouragement is crucial to your life. If you're not encouraging yourself and, like you say, patting yourself on the back for a job well done, even a small job, but you're doing it, because you're very quick, for most people anyway, to do the opposite. If you haven't done a good job and you haven't done it right, you'll criticize yourself, you beat yourself down and say how you wasn't good enough, you can't do it, all these reasons that can come so quickly to us.
Yeah.
Whereas when you just do something good, whether it's you've made dinner for your loved one and you've served them some food and they didn't have to cook, and you go, well done, you just provided food for someone that you love. Beautiful. I mean, it doesn't have to be some big grand gesture of like an amazing change of the world. It's every little step along the way that you're doing that isn't causing chaos.
Absolutely. One of the things we used to do, and when I did jazzercise, is you take your arm and you use your other hand to support, and you bring it back, and you actually pat yourself on the back for a job well done. And it's like,
Nice.
that's a good thing. It's like putting your right hand on your left shoulder, your left hand on your right shoulder, and squeeze, give yourself a hug for the day. There's nothing wrong with giving some self-love.
Yeah, no, self-love, and that's a big part of the book, that the main book that I'm writing. I don't like even saying main anymore, because the other one I put more heart into than I pre-planned to. I thought it was going to be a quick little 3-page PDF or something. It ended up being a book that I printed. But the book that I was working of, The Power of Self, is more techniques and real tools that I utilize to find myself.
Nice.
One of the major parts was self-love. And I give you a bit of it now. Like that, I noticed in my journey of self-love, I was doing lots of practices to affirm to myself that I love myself. Once I figured out that, I realized I didn't, and that I didn't realize that was an issue until I really contemplated again and sat still with it. And then when I tried putting things into effect for it, noticing the resistance was a good indication to me of a measurement that there's room for improvement. So I was practicing that, and then it came to me one time. I was realizing the touch side of it. And it's like, you can say, if you had a child or your own mother and they said to you every day, I love you, I love you, I love you, all the time, but they never touched you once, would you feel loved?
Yeah.
Whereas if they never said I love you, but they just held you tight every day, with a feeling, you would know you're loved. So to me, the touch part is actually higher than the spoken word of saying I love you. So if you don't actually put your hand on yourself sometimes and just like appreciate your hand for all the work it does, or touch yourself to embody yourself and just really think about the body and how well this one body that you have is with you for whatever this lifetime is, and it's going to do everything to serve you. To be appreciative and gratitude for it, no matter what it looks like, how it behaves. There's no conditions. And that's where the unconditional love comes in. You're not conditioned. I love my body when you look like this. I'll love you when you can run like this and jump like this. And it's regardless. If you don't even get up today, I love you anyways.
That's awesome. That's, touch is a really big thing. You learn that as a caregiver, provider, that just even the act of holding someone's hand, huge difference on how that affects them. It reminded me of when AIDS first came out, and everybody thought it was such a taboo, almost like being a leper in another country. Don't touch them. And one of the books I had read said the one thing that made the biggest difference is when they were in the hospital and somebody would come and just hold their hand. They said that was the biggest thing that helped them heal better and heal faster, because somebody held their hand. And the sometimes you touch somebody, oh, don't touch me, don't brush against me. And it's like, I'm a big hugger, so if you're around me physically, you're going to get a hug from me. It's just who I am. I can tell if I hug you if you're kind of resistant, so I'll let go and not hug as much, but you're still going to get a hug. Or at least shake your hand if you tell me, I don't want a hug. And it's like, but I'll shake your hand. And I think because I responded so well to that as a child, that was the one physical touch that made me feel safe and made me feel loved. So there is so much truth in physical contact. Not that we have to be huggers, or anything, but just being able to, like you said, love ourselves, hug ourselves. It's just amazing. And I just see my time, we're a little over. And it's like, darn, this half hour just goes way too fast.
It's no problem.
Yeah, Luke, thanks so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for
really
having me.
Appreciate it. You have got to come back. Tell us about your brother's script. Is that the right word?
Yeah, scripture.
Script. And let us know how it went. Keep us up to date on how Danielle's doing, how you're doing. And you've got YouTube, you've got your website, you've got your podcast, just so much going on, and I'm so thankful that our paths have crossed. I love meeting new people all the time, and this is so encouraging. So to my pride and joy out there, be sure and get Luke's books if you can. Excellent reading. And now I have to get your other book, Luke. You're going to give the steps on it, and it's like, yeah, I need to read that. So thank you. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 and at noon. I do not have a guest speaker today at noon. I actually have an appointment I have to go to, so there's nobody scheduled for today. But maybe I'll just replay this again at noon. This is great. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Be safe in Spain. Have a good evening. I know it's later there.
Yeah, it's still hot. I don't know how sweaty I look on the screen, but it's really hot here now.
You look good.
It's a hot day.
All right. So thank you. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. See you soon.